Hello again everyone from Kamakura, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. That's right, I said Kamakura, not Tokyo, because for the last week we have been in Kamakura, which is a small coastal city about an hour away from Tokyo. It's really hard to call Kamakura a city. It's more like a large town, I guess. There are no skyscrapers or really big buildings here. It's a very old and historical place, one of the most historical places in Japan, as a matter of fact. I would probably rank it maybe number 3 of the historical cities in Japan, behind Kyoto and Nara. And quite a beautiful place. It's situated in a valley by the seaside and looks toward the south, and it's surrounded by beautiful natural mountains. I happen to be sitting on the shrine grounds here, not far from the famous Daibutsu, which is maybe 500 meters away over toward my left side. And the beautiful trees, the nature, the flowers, the cherry blossoms, it's really a nice place to be here today. I wish we had more places like this in Tokyo. It's very quiet here. I'm the only person here, and I've kind of been the only person here for the last, I don't know, 20 minutes or so that I've been here. It's really nice, and we do like to come to Kamakura when we get a chance, and to enjoy the beach and such like that. I had planned to make this video on the beach, but unfortunately it's very windy on the beach today, and too much noisy to make a video over there. During our stay here this week, we've enjoyed the beach. We went on a cruise on a boat and got to enjoy some beautiful views of the coastline and some of the scenery. A little bit offshore. They have a lot of shrines and temples which are visible from the shore, and the weather's been, for the most part, quite nice this week, even though it's still a little bit early in the season. It's been very quiet here. I visited the Daibutsu with my daughter the other day. It was quite interesting to be we were the only people there, when normally it's really crowded with tourists. Earlier in the week it was crowded, with lots of students coming from the public schools around Japan during their spring break to come and see the Daibutsu, and many to get lucky charms and say prayers and things like that for luck in the next school year. The school year here in Japan starts in a few days, on April 1st, and for the last, I don't know, maybe a week or 10 days or so, most kids here have been on spring break. For those of you who are coming to visit Japan and you don't have a lot of time, if you're coming to visit Tokyo and don't have time to go out to Western Japan to visit Kyoto or Nara and want to see a very historical place, I highly recommend Kamakura. It's quite easy to get to by train. There are also buses which will bring you here from the major stations around the Tokyo metro area. There are plenty of places to stay here, and the cost is much more reasonable than, say, Kyoto, Nara, or pretty much anywhere in Tokyo. The food here is good, the people are more laid back and friendly, and if you like hiking, Japanese history, surfing, sailboarding, or whatever, it's a great place to visit. I highly recommend it. So, I'll go ahead and get started with the subject of today's video, which is a Minolta rangefinder camera, and this particular one is the Hi-Matic E, which was introduced by Minolta in 1971. By 1971, cameras were becoming quite advanced, and most of the large camera manufacturers had introduced their SLR cameras, or modern SLR cameras at that time. Cameras like the Canon FTB, the Olympus OM1, Nikon had introduced some pretty good high quality and more sophisticated SLR cameras. Of course, the Canon F1 and the Nikon F2 and other models were all out. So it's kind of odd to see companies like Minolta coming up with a new rangefinder camera when the SLR, I guess, craze was really starting to accelerate. But one of the benefits of that is that this is a very advanced rangefinder camera compared to the ones which were produced previously, and is actually a very user-friendly camera compared to some of these cameras, or earlier rangefinder cameras. The Minolta Hi-Matic E is an automatic camera, pretty much a point-and-shoot camera, with the minor exceptions that you have to focus the camera manually, and you have to, of course, wind the film and charge the shutter. But other than that, the camera selects the best aperture and shutter speed for the particular thing that you are shooting at. So quite easy to use, and it has a very small learning curve compared to other cameras. We'll go ahead and take a look at the features, functions, controls, and how to use the Minolta Hi-Matic E. Starting at the top here, we have the typical Hi-Matic rewind knob with a pop-out lever. Next to that, we have a hot shoe for mounting a more modern strobe flash. Minolta produced a series of flashes for their cameras around this time, and when using one of these flashes with the Minolta Hi-Matic E, you have automatic operation. When you're using a Minolta flash, you can set the switch on the back to automatic. If you're using any other kind of flash, set it to manual. If you're using an old bulb flash, which probably none of you ever will, you have a PC sync socket on the right side where you can plug in the flash. Right here we have indicator light letting you know that the camera is energized and ready to fire. When you depress the shutter button a certain distance, this light will light up. The Hi-Matic E has a pretty large range of shutter speeds, all the way up to 1/1000th of a second, so it's not as limiting as cameras like the Yashica, say, Electro series, which had maximum speeds of 1/250th or 1/500th of a second, or the Canon QL17, which has a 1/500th of a second maximum speed. You have one more stop of speed in the Hi-Matic E. Of course, in the shutter button, it's a little bit firm to push down, and it has a lot of travel, but that's kind of how the system works when you have a combination electrical mechanical system to operate the camera. And of course, this shutter button accepts a standard cable release. And over here is the film winding and shutter charging lever, and next to that is the film counter dial. One thing about the Hi-Matic E is it is battery dependent, and unless you have batteries in it, you're not going to be able to fire the shutter or to wind the film. So make sure that you have good batteries loaded in the camera. On the back here we have the viewfinder window. As this is a more modern camera, it has a more modern and brighter viewfinder rangefinder system with much improved contrast over the earlier cameras. And here we have a film indicator window. And I'd probably say this, since it's located on this side, I guess a shutter charge indicator. So that's probably more what this is. I haven't actually shot with one of these cameras, though I've serviced quite a few with them. I haven't actually used film in one, but this is a good example which actually works quite well. So I hope to take this one out and get a few photographs with it. On the bottom here we have the release button, which you depress to rewind the film. We have a battery chamber. This camera was designed to use the big Mercury 1.3 volt batteries. You can use LR44 or SR44 batteries with adapters or with spacers. You can either use a battery on either side with a spacer made out of tin foil, or you can stack the batteries together on one side and put the spacer on the other. That's often a more simple way to do it. The SR44 batteries are silver oxide batteries, and they'll perform a little better than the LR44 alkaline batteries. Here we have a standard 1/4" tripod socket. On the front here we have a dial which you use to set the film speed, excuse me. We have a film speed range of ASA 25 to 500. Most common films today are usually around ASA 100 or 200, so more than likely these are probably the only two film speeds you're going to need. Behind that we have the focusing ring, and this is arranged in feet and meters. And we have a self-timer located on the right side. And of course here we have the viewfinder and rangefinder windows. So a very simple layout. Pretty much all you have to do, as I said before, just wind the film, focus, compose, and shoot, and the camera does everything else. Loading the film is quite easy. You pull out the rewind lever and flip open the door. And this camera does not have a pull-up rewind lever, so it has a cutaway in the bottom. So you simply put the film canister or cartridge through the bottom and push it up into the forks. I always hold it in place with my thumb to keep the film canister in place, pull the film leader over, feed it into one of the slots, and the take-up spool here, it only goes one way, which is the right way. When you have it fed in and wind it until the film pulls over and the holes on both sides of the film are engaged in the teeth on the sprocket here, then close the film door and wind and fire the shutter until the number 1 lines up in the film counter window. So pretty simple, no-nonsense camera. The best benefit of this camera is the 40mm f1.7 lens, which is an amazing performer. It was designed to compete head-to-head against the Yashica GX and GL, and of course the Canon QL17. This camera is a little bit easier to use than the Canonet, and probably about the same as the Yashica cameras. Personally, I like the Minolta Hi-Matic E a lot. Unfortunately, I don't come across a lot of good examples of these cameras. They do have a few problems which are quite common with them. The first common problem is that the electronics often don't work in them, and that is because the mercury batteries which they used to use emit or put out a kind of gas which gets around inside the camera and causes a lot of corrosion. Alkaline batteries also corrode, but they don't put out this kind of gas that the mercury batteries did. And maybe a third or sometimes half of these cameras I've come across the electronics don't work in. Another problem with these cameras is that the lens is prone to separation or coating deterioration on the inside, and either problem is something which cannot be fixed short of replacing the lens elements. So if you're shopping for one of these cameras, make sure that that it has batteries and you can test it, and also that the shutter that the lens is clean and clear. So anyway, that's it for my video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I plan to be doing more videos when I return home. Since we were gone all week, I have a kind of a backlog of orders of customers who ordered cameras during the week. I should be able to get most of those out tomorrow on Monday, and hopefully have all the rest out on Tuesday. So I apologize for the delay in getting the cameras out, but pretty much everyone who's ordered a camera should receive it sometime by the end of this week or early next week. For those of you who are interested in seeing more videos, please subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And for those of you who like the video, please hit the like button. That always helps. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.